Welcome to Economics Trainer. This video was made to help you strengthen your skills in microeconomics. Here we have a sample question, care of brighttutoring.ca. It's the kind of question you'd expect to see on a test in a first-year microeconomics class. Let's work through it together. So here's the question. Consider a competitive market with a supply curve of market price equals 40 plus 0.1 quantity supplied, and a demand curve of market price equals 140 minus 0.4 quantity demanded. The first question we have to find is what is the competitive equilibrium market price and quantity? And then the second question will be what are the consumer, producer, and total surplus in the competitive equilibrium. So let's start off by finding the competitive equilibrium because that's the common thing between these two questions. So let's graph the supply and demand curve so that way we can see what we're doing here. Here we have price and quantity, and we have the supply and demand curves. Now we know our competitive equilibrium will be right here where supply equals demand. So let's draw that in. And then we also have the choke prices. Let's see, for our supply curve, we can see it starts at a price of 40. And for the demand curve, it starts at a price of 140. So let's add those in here. We have 140 up here. And we have 40 down here. So for the competitive equilibrium, we know that's where supply equals demand. So let's work it through here. So our supply is 40 plus 0.1 Q. And we set that equal to demand, which is 140 minus 0.4 Q. So all we have to do here is a little algebra and solve for Q. So let's throw Q on the left-hand side here, move that 0.4 over. We'll get 0.5 Q. And then on the right-hand side, let's move the 40 over, subtract it from here, we get 100. And then to get rid of that 0.5, we can just double both sides, and we get a quantity in equilibrium of 200 units. So that's going to be right down here. And then once we have that market quantity, we go up here and we can plug it into either supply or demand. Doesn't matter because they cross at that point. So let's just plug it into the supply curve. So we see, okay, our market price is going to be 40 plus 0.1, and then we plug in the 200. So let's see, what do we have here? We have 40 plus 10% of 200, that'll be 20. So our market price is going to be $60. Let's put that over here. So there's the first question answered. So we have a market price of 60, and we have a market quantity of 200. Now for the next question, we have to use the graph to figure out the gains from trade here for consumer and producer surplus. So for producer surplus, let's see, that's going to be down here. For producer, it's the difference between what they actually sold it for, which is the market price here, and what they're willing to sell it for, which is the supply curve. So we have this whole area down here. And then for consumer surplus, that's up here, because that's the difference between what a consumer is willing to pay, which is demand, and what they actually pay, which is the market price. So we have to figure out this triangle up here. So let's look at the geometry here. We just have a right angle triangle. So we say, okay, consumer surplus is just going to be base times height divided by 2. If we look at the base, we can see that goes from here to here. So that's going to be 200. And then for the height, it's a little trickier because that's going from this point here at the 60 up to this point here at 140. So we're going to say, okay, for the height, that's going to be 140 minus 60. And then divide by 2. So let's see, what do we have here? Okay, that 2 and that 2 will cancel, so we get 100 in the front. And then let's see here in the back, we have 80. So our consumer surplus will be 8,000. Now for the producer surplus here in the blue, we do the exact same thing. We say, okay, it's a triangle, so we do base times height divided by 2. So the great part is the base is the same, it's 0 to 200, so we have 200 for the base. And then for the height starts at 40 here, and then goes up to 60. So this gap here, 40 to 60, that's 20. And then divide by 2. So let's see, the 2 in the front and the 2 in back, we're going to cancel. We're going to have 100 times 20, so that's going to be 2,000. And then in total, we know that total surplus is consumer plus producer surplus, so all we have to do is add them up. So let's see, we have 8,000 plus 2,000, so that's going to be 10,000. So going back to our question here, let's see your consumer surplus, 8,000. Producer surplus is 2,000. And total surplus is 10,000. And that's how you complete that question. Thanks for watching. You can find more microeconomics questions like this one by subscribing to this channel or by going to brighttutoring.ca. See you next time.